Hi, it's Brittany from the Empurrium. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are sewing the As You Wish bag. It is a pattern from K.Dill Handmade. This video is releasing as part of the As You Wish marathon for the Marathon Society. I did release a cutting video already, so if you'd like to see how I cut this out, you could go back and watch that as well. But I used Obsidian glazed clay vinyl from Where Me Know. All my hardware is from there too, including this cute little kiddie pool. And then I used this cotton woven I have on my website. This is the Cats Mashup in orange. The art is from Hex Reject. If you'd like to buy the digital files on your own, I do have a discount code there. It is Meow. And then I lined it in black waterproof canvas from Fabric Wholesale Direct. This is a fun pattern. It has a really cute flap that is actually a slip pocket. Amazing. Has a slip pocket on the front. We've got a zipper pocket on the inside, which you could omit if you wanted. And then it has a really nice zipper pocket on the back. Oh, my webbing is from Geeky Hardware. I didn't do any rivets on this bag, but she includes really cute like rivet accents everywhere. I don't think I have anything else to say about it other than I hope you enjoy. Make sure you check out the rest of the marathon. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know if you're gonna make one. I hope you enjoy. So the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna take your gusset exterior piece and your, I do believe, longest piece of webbing. Maybe not. No, the second longest one. And 2 of the rectangle rings. I am going to, let's see here. Okay, so you're putting the rectangle ring on and you're folding it down about an inch. Okay, and then I'm gonna clip right there, and then you're doing that on both sides. Make sure you fold it in the same way, and I'm going to make sure these match. Looks pretty good. Okay, and then I know it's hard to see. I'm centering this. Let's see here. It looks like when I lay this down on my gusset that, okay. Mine is looking kind of like this, but in the picture, hers goes down here. So what I can do is I can start on the one side. I'm gonna take some double-sided tape and run it going directly in the middle. Just make sure you don't go too far on the ends. Okay, yeah. I was like, I measured this twice. Okay. So I'm just gonna adjust this so it matches her picture. But I want this to be right about there. Sorry, I'm gonna lean my head in for a second. Okay. So then making sure that this stays in the middle. And then what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna trim a little bit of this off. Looks like mine's about an inch too long. I don't know why, but okay. and then matching up. So this should be right there. Anything that's folded over will just provide extra stability too. Okay, there we go. Those match. Okay, what we're gonna do is we're gonna stitch all the way around, and you're gonna get as close to the hardware as you can. And once you do that, it's optional. You can add rivets to stabilize here, and then like accent rivets. I actually decided I'm not gonna use any rivets at all, because I don't love punching holes in webbing. It just never really goes the greatest for me. So I'm just gonna sew all of mine. I had debated using my Dementor's Kiss sewing string from Wizardry, but I didn't know if I would love having the variegated thread on this part, so I just opted to do all black. Okay, so that is on there. It looks wavy. I don't know why, but it should be fine. Okay, now we're going to set that to the side, and we are going to grab our longer zipper, whatever pull you're using for the back, and your zipper tabs. And I'm going to go ahead and seal those ends and put my zipper pull on. Okay. And then you're going to sew these together. And then you'll open them and top stitch. Okay, and then there is my prepped zipper. Then you're going to take, okay, now we're working on the outer zipper and front flap. Okay, she suggests that you can use or put your logo here. I was thinking about putting mine on the front, but that might not actually be a good spot because the flap comes down on the whole thing, but I might still put it on the front of my flap. But like having it on the front and the back, but if you want to do the back instead of on the flap, right here is where she suggests to do it. Okay, so we're going to center. Here, I'm gonna mark my center so I don't mess up. Okay, I want my zipper pull to go to the left. Also, I always choose that direction. Alright, so I made a center mark and I'm lining that up. And she says you can baste this zipper on, so if you would like to baste it, you'll go ahead and do that. I'm gonna go ahead and put my lining down next and stitch them all together at the same time. You can also use tape here if that's something you like to do. But I'm gonna grab that lining piece that matches. And then go ahead and sew. And then we're going to fold those together and top stitch the zipper. I like to sometimes clip the pieces together so they match up. This helps me get a better top stitch sometimes. And if you're going to like tug on the zipper, just make sure that you're using even pressure the whole way, and that'll help make your zipper straighter. Okay, we're gonna take the back lower pocket lining and we're gonna lay that so that it's right sides together and line everything up. And we will stitch all the way around. And then I'm gonna trim my tabs. Okay, and then we've got this piece ready. From here, we're gonna take our front flap, which is this piece, and we're gonna lay it down right sides together. Center it and clip. And sew. Flip that up and top stitch. Okay, if you're using a turn lock, you're going to keep going, but if you're using a magnetic snap, I'm gonna need to put a piece on. So I need to grab the pattern piece. Okay, so I grabbed the front flap pattern piece and I just marked a hole where the magnet placement is gonna be, and I'm gonna line it up and mark where that circle should be. And from there, I'm gonna get the male side of my magnetic snap, mark the slits to cut. I'm gonna use my blade. You just want to be careful that you don't go too far. And then what I like to do is I keep a square like scrap of Peltex. You can do Decaville Heavy too, would work well. And I just cut off a square whenever I need it. So I'm gonna put that in with my stabilizer. And then I also like to take like my screwdriver and fold in the prongs with that and flatten them. And I'll also take a little piece of duct tape to help protect. So now we've got our snap in there, and this is on the inside, it's not on the outside. But we're going to line up the lining piece with the exterior of the flap. And we're going to clip, and then we're sewing around from this point to this point. You're not going all the way around. We're just working on this flap. Tiniest bit off from matching up. I don't cut great with paper pattern. All right, now that it's clipped, like I said, we're gonna stitch around here. And we're starting, yes, right at that edge. once you've sewn that, she has you snip along the curves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use pinking shears. I'm going to trim here around there. So this is what my stitches look like. I kept it out of that Decaville, and then I used pinking shears. I just remembered I said I wanted to put my logo on this piece. So I'm gonna flip it right side out, and I'm gonna do the top stitch, and then I'm gonna put my logo in before I go any further, or I won't be able to. I was gonna just measure it and put it in. Oh, George is gonna bless us with his appearance. I was going to put my logo in before I flipped it, but then I realized I probably want to see what it looks like with the placement of my print. I hate when I put my logo like right over the cat's face or something. Okay, that poked out really nicely, and I definitely like this combination of interfacings I used. Okay, so we're going to top stitch right where we just sewed. George, you're in a bad spot for this step. Depending on your materials, you could also iron this before top stitching as well. And I am glad I cut my Decaville out of, got it, George's fur, out of the seam allowance. Okay, so I'm gonna put my nameplate on real quick. I'm kind of thinking I might just put it like here, but I don't know. I'm gonna do that and I'll be right back. I went with this spot for that, and now we're gonna work on the front slip pocket. I went ahead and grabbed the pattern piece and made a dot with, hi George. I made a dot where the other side of the magnetic snap is gonna go, and then same thing as that front piece. I'm going to put my snap there. Please don't headbutt me right now, sir. It's important. Or dangerous, or what'd I say? I really need to change my blade, and I dropped my magnet. I see it. George jumps up and everything just goes to crap. Thanks, George. I don't think I cut a big enough spot on this side. Oh, got it. Sometimes you're able to push it through there, thankfully. So we've got that on there. If you're doing a turn lock, you would put the other side of your turn lock there too. And then we're going to match the lining piece up, and we're going to clip on the curve and then stitch that. So let's see here. And then for this, she has you clip the curve. I'm gonna take the pinking shears again, and I'm just going to trim that down. That is not my pinking shears. They both have black handles. So this helps the curve set nicer when you flip it. Okay, we will turn those wrong sides together. I didn't do the greatest job cutting that piece, so that's why that looks like that. But it's in the seam allowance. I'm not stressed. Okay, I know I'm putting like extra clips, but it helps me when I do curved pieces like this, because if I just roll this in my fingers, it's not really lining up everywhere that I want it to. As long as the lining piece is staying below, I'm happy, but I wouldn't want like the lining sticking up higher, if that makes sense. So top stitch the curve. I don't know if you guys can see, but George is still right here, staring at me. Okay, my lining went up a tiny bit, but it's okay because it'll only show when the flap is open and they're both black. So now we're gonna take and drop pieces on the floor, it's fine. We're taking the bag body pieces and you're gonna have those right side up, and you're gonna put the front slip pocket on one and then this back piece on the other, and then we're gonna clip those and sew them together, like basting them together. And I'm gonna speed this part up real quick. So now we have that front slip pocket basted onto one of the panels, and then we have the back piece basted on the other. In the pattern she has you finish the exterior right now, but what I'm gonna do is I'm going to work on my I'm gonna work on my zipper pocket, and I am going to time lapse this just because I need to speed it up a little for the marathon. But you can find instructions for doing an overlay zipper pocket in a bunch of other videos. And if you need help with it, let me know and I'll refer you directly to one. Alright, so now we get to assemble everything. I went ahead and marked the centers on my gusset pieces and my remaining pieces. So, take the lining and I'll set it to the side for a moment. We're gonna take the exterior gusset and we're gonna line it up on the front exterior panel first. I'm gonna clip the straight edges first. And I'm gonna match up the side edges and clip those. I'm gonna ignore the curves for the moment. And I'm gonna flip and start the other side. She doesn't say in the pattern about clipping. I'm gonna see how it fits and use my judgment. Also, I bent those rectangle rings down so that they're out of the way and they won't get sewn. Okay, see here. Looks like it fits pretty well, but it might need a little bit of help laying down. We'll see. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab my stapler. I feel like the vinyl I'm using might be a little bit thicker too, so this will help keep everything in place for the curve. Yeah, that fits really well. And with the staples, it just really helps because when you're sewing the curves, they tend to shift. I ran out of staples. But anyways, the staples just help because as much as I love clips, they don't have as solid of a grip as a staple does. Okay, and then we are going to sew that. I'm gonna back stitch over that seam for the front slip pocket. And I'm gonna use my stiletto to help hold everything in place additionally. And as I sew this curve, I'm just going to make sure I'm bending the gusset piece so it lays flat. You want to try to not get any pleats. When it comes to the lining, I don't worry as much on that because it is inside the bag. You're really not going to see it. But for the exterior, you will you will see that. So you can trim some bulk here if you'd like, but with the seam allowance being a little bit smaller, I'm gonna leave mine be, but we do want to make sure we take staples out. I really like the stapler and staple remover I use. I just got the stapler at Walmart, but I got these on Amazon in like a 3-pack. I'm pretty sure I have it in my like little Amazon storefront. Okay, and then you can check your seams. All right, and then we're gonna repeat that with this other side. And doing this side first, like it's gonna be a little bit more difficult doing this because you've got this to contend with too, but if you did this side first, you would have to deal with it twice essentially. So again, I'm lining the bottom up. Let's see, I put a staple there last time. You want to make sure when you're stapling, you want to, I put that in a little, but you want to make sure it's inside of your seam allowance. That's going to ensure that you're not sewing over them, which is going to be more important depending on what kind of machine and like thickness of needle you have too. I have sewn over them, but I really try not to. I'm gonna do curves again. That barely went on. There's a lot of layers right here. Gonna sew that just like we did the other side. It is a little bit more difficult sewing the second side, so just take your time. You really can like flatten this and it's gonna help. Just really make sure that you are taking your time and you're not folding the fabric in the seam allowance. That's what makes pleats. And I'm gonna check that. Alright, right here, it is really close. Like the gusset wasn't on it as far, so I'm gonna go back through in this spot. I don't want to perforate my vinyl, however, I want to make sure that I'm not too close to the edge. So what I'm doing is I'm just stitching right inside that line and then meeting it up again. And then that should be much better right there. It's always important to check your seams before you finish the bag and find out that it might fall apart. Make sure you get all the staples out. Now she tells you to turn this right sides out, so we'll get a preview at what our bag will look like. Oh, I left a staple in there and that didn't feel good. Scratched my finger a little bit. So again, make sure, get all those staples out. I left my zipper pocket open on the lining because I intended to turn my bag through it, but I'm thinking now that I just had a hard time turning this, that I want to do a drop-in lining. But what I'm going to do while I decide, I'm going to repeat what I just did exactly with my lining pieces. I'm gonna go ahead and speed through that as well. You're probably wondering, oh, we moved. Yes, at my sewing arm, because I love an excuse to use my sewing arm. I know that the hyperlapse is really fast, so you probably didn't catch what I did, but I left an opening in my lining. Maybe wasn't quite big enough, but I was sewing the lining and I was thinking about another bag I make that's kind of similar with the flap. And what I've been doing is turning the bag through the opening in the bottom, closing it through the pocket, and going from there, so that I don't have to flip the bag, but I do need to turn this back wrong sides out. So I'll turn this back. And the one downfall of doing it the way I'm about to, because I don't like putting my exterior into my lining. I always have a hard time with it. But I gotta make sure that this flap is out of the way. And it is a bigger flap. So I'm just gonna push that in as far as I can. Make sure that those rectangles are out of my way. And then I will put this in. Let's see. I want the zipper to be on the back side, so I'm gonna put that on the side that the flap is. And then I'm going to open my seams everywhere as best I can and clip all the way around. And I'm matching the seams up as I go. Oh, that was the wrong one. That would have been interesting. Okay, and then we're just going to sew around. Making sure everything is staying lined up. And I like to really try and keep my seams flat, like open. And I backstitched real quick there, just for a little bit of stability at the seam. If you don't have a cylinder arm, you don't need one. I just, on seams like this and final top stitch like this, I really like using mine because I have it. Be really careful if you put your fingers close. I always get asked, almost always, about this, and it is a piece that was on the machine when I got it. It holds a table up here, but it's like double side taped on or something. I just always use it to hold the threads. I didn't buy it to hold the threads. Okay, so now we gotta flip the bag. This is generally one of the harder parts. I'm gonna go ahead and speed it up. That probably looked really easy. It wasn't. Okay, so I'm gonna, like I said, through my open pocket, I am going to close the lining. And then I'll push that back in there. And then I'm gonna grab a label. Got a label. I'm gonna put that into this seam here. So you just fold it down, depending on how you did it. I always fold this here when I'm making the pocket, which I know I fast forwarded that through, but you're gonna close your pocket by folding the seam into the middle, and then we will, oh, so sorry. We'll close this, maybe. I like to get about 1/3 of the way and then put the label in. And now we just need to do our final top stitch. I'm gonna push the pocket in and make sure you're poking the corners so it lays flat. Okay, and you can zip that up if you'd like. So we need, I like how this flap is out of your way. Like you're not stitching through it. But you're gonna make sure you're rolling the seam in your fingers so it's sitting nicely. I like to clip. And since I'm using my cylinder arm, I'm gonna be stitching from the exterior. If you are using a flatbed machine and you want to stitch from the exterior, you're going to need to flip the bag inside out, which is generally my preference because I feel like on a top stitch, I always get like one stitch that isn't as pretty, and I'd rather it be on the inside. So personal preference. You do what you are comfortable with and what you like doing. And that's your decision. And that's the great part about making bags. Okay. I'm gonna start like back here because this flap covers it. Obviously make sure that that rectangle ring is out of the way especially if you are stitching from the inside, because you might not be able to see it. Whereas I can see it because I'm on the exterior. If you wanted to do a drop-in lining, instead of stitching it, flipping the whole bag, and then doing this top stitch, you'd make a mark down on your lining and your exteriors, and you would most likely use double-sided tape, unless you're confident in just folding, but you'd fold it down and then you'd line them up and just stitch them together. And she does give instructions for that in the pattern, and I really did debate it, but I honestly don't like having to do all the taping and folding. Again, just another thing that is based off of your preference and what you want to do. Okay, so make sure everything is sitting nicely, and then that just folds right down onto your magnet. The last thing to do is to attach your crossbody strap. Thinking now, I think I would have liked to just put a regular crossbody strap on, but I already cut the webbing, so I'm gonna do it the way the pattern calls for. I will go ahead and time lapse that, and then I'll show you everything when it's completed. Alright, so finishing the bag is pretty simple. You're just gonna grab those other 3 pieces of webbing, and then, so for this part, just like when we put the rectangle rings on the gusset with the strap, if you want to, you can use rivets, but I'm just going to sew mine. Okay, what you're gonna do first is you're taking the longer one and you're putting your slide on. So I like taking my webbing and folding it in, and then I'm gonna sew a little, not quite a box with an X, but I just do a line, sew my diagonal, do my line again, and I always back stitch at the start and stop of those lines, and then I'm gonna meet the spot I started. So that's how I do them. I used to make a lot of dog collars, and I always do the diagonal stitches for durability. Whoa. Okay, so then you're taking, you're gonna go in one of the other rectangles. Make sure that when you go through, you have this the right way. You want it to look like this. And then you're gonna go to your other rectangle that's waiting and just fold that, and I'm gonna do the same stitches. Also realized that I was going to time lapse this, and I'm not, because I'm explaining it. Okay, so this strap is a little bit different, and honestly, I guess, like, if you had some webbing that you had like weird cuts of, since this piece I think was 40 inches, and like your standard crossbody is around like 52, 54, sometimes 60, depends on how you cut it. So like you have this, you've got the shorter ones, and even if you just put connectors here, it's a good way to like use some pieces. So anyways, all right, I'm going to attach the shorter ones to the bag first. So same deal, I am folding that under And then I'm going to stitch that. It's gonna be a little interesting. Okay. this, yeah. Okay. Kind of have to curve it a little. This clip helped hold that too. This is where riveting could really, I guess, make this a little bit easier. Making it happen though. Alright. I'm gonna do the other side now. Okay. So just like I did that. And you do want to try and do them the same so that the strap ends up being the same. But get as close as you can. You don't have to measure it unless you really want to. Okay, so if you kind of like fold down that hardware right there, it helps. And once you start sewing, it'll fold it down on its own a little. Made it. Okay, so the next part is going to be easier. It's further away. Okay. So now that other one we just made, you want to make sure that you have the outside of your strap. So this is what the outside looks like. I'm gonna do this side first. You're gonna put that in the same way. I'm gonna go ahead and clip this one on first. And then you're gonna take and make sure it's not twisted. And by clipping this on first, we'll be able to double check that all of that is right. Okay, so those match up pretty well, and then that is no twists in it. I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing I've been doing. Last one. But yeah, you could definitely do like a traditional crossbody strap on this. it's done. This is really cute. Looks like a nice little size too. Like it's not very big, but also it's a good size. So it's cute. I like the slip pocket here. I love that this is a slip pocket back here. Your zipper on the inside, and then this is a great zipper pocket here too. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you haven't watched the rest of the marathon yet, make sure you do